Yes, I'm Brady Nichols. I am a teacher, artist, coach, and I was asked to do this this endeavor. So one of the things they asked me to do was talk a little bit about my start. Funny enough, I taught high school for over 25 years. I never took an art class when I was in high school. And my grandma was an artist, and so I did artwork with her, but I didn't take organized art classes when I was in high school. It wasn't until I got recruited to run for Phillips Exeter Academy, which is this fancy prep school out east, that I took my first drawing class, okay? I will say this, I did a lot of art, and one of the funnier stories of me doing art when I was in public school was I was dating this girl in high school, and I did sports. So after school, I was always doing stuff related to running and such. And when my birthday came up, and this girl that I was dating, she always had a job right after school. She worked in this gift shop, so she always had some money. And so on my birthday, I had this crappy truck, and she bought me this car stereo to put in this truck because it had no radio. And I'm like, I can't take this. Like, this is like way too fancy of a gift. And she's like, no, you gotta do it. I saved up for it. I went home, I got this car stereo. My mom's like, that's pretty extravagant. You better, and hers was like, her birthday was like a couple months after mine. So she's like, you better get her something good when her time comes. I'm like, all right. So I'm racking my brain, and my grandma is like, why don't you make her something? And I'm like, yeah. So back then, now we got some young people in here. Back in the 80s, when you wanted to find the lyrics of the song, you had to wait if you didn't have, and the song I knew I was gonna do, I didn't listen to that kind of music. So like, I had to go to the station she listened to, wait for them to play the song, push play record, get it on a cassette tape, and then keep rewinding it to write the lyrics down. That's how we had to do it, okay? So I did the calligraphy, I did this like little painting, my grandma helped me do it, we did it on this plaque, we burned the edges to make it look all old. I thought it came out sweet. So when it was done, it's about a week before her birthday, and I bring it over to show my mom, and my mom was unlike my grandma, and she was not the artistic type, she was the materialistic type. So when I showed her, I'm like, Ma, look what I made for Marcy, and she's like, that's cool, but she gave you a car stereo. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I made this. She's like, I hope that's not it. And I'm like, oh no, I'm like freaking out. So I call my grandma, I'm like, Ma, and this is her daughter, I go, Ma's not too keen on this. Don't worry about it. She's gonna love it. When I revealed it on the birthday, she cried, her mom cried. They were just completely overwhelmed. I thought it came out pretty good. Years later, come back from college, hadn't seen her in probably 3 years. We bump into each other. I don't have the truck, and I don't have the car stereo, but she still had that piece in her apartment. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And so I came home to my mom, and I'm like, in your face, Mom. I go, because this piece of artwork's still sitting there. I go, where's that car seat? She's whatever. I still would have rather had a necklace or something. So in high school, didn't do much, just did stuff on my own. Then went to college, still wasn't gonna major in art. When I eventually did major in art, I had a professor who, at first, because I went to Phillips Exeter, they wanted me to major in chemistry. And before Helen came, I had another advisor who finally, art teacher, took me under his wing, and that's when I started doing art. And I have one of my favorite teachers here today. And so from there, I was sailing, went to graduate school, went to Madison for that. And while teaching for 20-something years, I was able to kind of keep doing work. And through the years, one of my kind of big things was to write a book, because I used to tell stories similar to this one. And so I went to graduate school, got my master's. My brother went to prison for 18 years. And so we had a really, really rough upbringing. And I decided to get it in a book. and I did 38 chapters. And what I did is I put his name and my name, because what I tried to do when I wrote it is each chapter alternates, and one's from my perspective and one's from his perspective. Although I wrote it all, he would write me from where he was, and then I would write the chapters out. It was slow going for a long time. When he finally got out after the 18 years is when we could kind of tie it together, and then I published it. I get it here for some folks. If you haven't, I know there's some of you have. If you need to get one, let me know and we can purchase one. But my goal is to eventually illustrate all 38 chapters. And hopefully I can do that sometime. Being semi-retired will help, certainly. But let's see, this piece, and this piece are from this one of the chapters. This one here, one of the first ones, this is the block that goes with this, which I'll later kind of go through a demo on how I do these, but this is linoleum. This is, as you can see, one of the bigger blocks. So this one's from the Checkers chapter. And another story related to this one was our upbringing when we were like in elementary school was pretty crazy. And so my father had a wicked drinking problem. He was super violent, and my mom did all the working, he did all the sleeping on the couch. And when he was hungover, it was, you better be quiet. So we were in the kitchen, he was sleeping on the couch, we were playing checkers, we were messing around, and he starts yelling like, "Shut the hell up." And so we went to get up, and when we did, the checkers fell on the floor and kind of made a lot of noise, and he came in and lost his stuff. And so throughout the book, whenever I symbolized that kind of violence, I chose to do it in this twister mentality. And you can see the checkers and stuff. So I used that motif throughout some of the series in the book, that one being the other one and this one being the Shane one. I'm going to leave some of those other chapters out there for those of you that haven't read it yet. You guys can pick it up. It goes pretty quick. This one was the first race. Running ended up being a huge part of me kind of finding art, and running and that ended up being the two things I did while I was at high school for all these years. But running and art were my balance, the athletic part and the art part. And this one was about the first race, which I went over in the book. And that was one of those things where I think all of us at some point we stumble upon something where, and it was literally some stumbling upon it where I was pretty good naturally, and that was super helpful. And then art was something I stumbled in, and I was fairly natural at that. And so when I was in college and they were kind of pushing me to do the chemistry, I tried, but then I gravitated to the stuff that I was pretty good at. That's kind of the come up part of it. Talked about the checkers one. This one's the most recent. This is the Ohio River, and this one was funny enough was kind of on a whim, because as you can see, it's a little bit different than some of these other pieces. And this was I would consider this one of the, like, a happy place. I'm always cruising down on there. I got a kayak and stuff, and I'll kayak up and down the Ohio River, and I took this one picture, and every once in a while, I usually don't do that, where it's just like one picture that I'm looking at. Obviously, there's more stuff from my head usually, but this one, it was just one of those things where I was like, I could see it as a print. So I wanted to do another larger print, so I cut that out, and it ended up being pretty cool. I like that one. This one here is fingers crossed. We have some parents in here. I did a triptych, and this is the third one of a triptych. So there's three. By the way, for other than these pieces are for sale, but the other thing is I have a QR code, so I have a online gallery with most of the other pieces. I only brought one of the triptych here, but when I had kids, got a little bit more focused. A, B, got rid of my motorcycle. C, but one of the only thing I cared about was like, did we get 10 fingers, 10 toes? Were we helpful? Fingers crossed. So I did a triptych of that, the thought process and the worry of having newborns. And so I made 3 of those pieces, and they're all in different positions and such. But that one was pretty fun to do. This one I mentioned. This was the first race, a chapter that I did in the book. And like I said, I was naturally the first high school race I did was a JV race, and I won it on accident. And the coach thought I cut the course, and then it took all the other guys on the team to go, no, he was with me until he passed me. So that was part of the element with that. This one I mentioned. This one's a shame one. This one also has to do with one of the chapters related to me and my brother and my dad. And then this one's pretty sweet because this one is related to, I call this one resilience, because during COVID, a lot of us, especially the students that I dealt with, and my daughter was one of them, really struggled with mental health. And there was a point during coming out of COVID, seeing her get better, but struggle with just social media, struggle with all the things of being locked in with COVID. This was the image that I kind of derived from that moment in time, and really what I was seeing with young people and struggling with just being locked in and struggling with that COVID time. So this one was one of my resilient pieces. This was also when I started just playing around with, you can notice on the rest of these that I brought, they're all standard blocks. So, I can cut the blocks to any size I want. Most of them are rectangular or what have you. But this one was one of the first ones that I started to do where I was cutting the block into like a puzzle piece. So it doesn't have to be just a square. And that was pretty fun to do. So I have a bunch of pieces on the online gallery where I start to explore like, hey, I don't have to just make them rectangular or square. I'll start cutting them into different shapes. And so the block is actually this shape, as opposed to this one that's this shape here. So that's kind of the skinny on me, the pieces. Does anybody have any questions or anything before we? Because I can go through the process if you wish. Any questions? Going once. All right. So relief printing. I've taught a bunch of my high school kids this process. So as I mentioned, this is a block. Okay, you can do relief prints on. This is linoleum. You can do them on wood blocks. All kinds of flat surfaces. And the idea for those of you that are new is what you're doing is you're cutting this, and the parts you cut away are the parts that don't print. Okay, so you're printing the part that's not cut, and that's the high spot. So what I did is the one that I decided to bring, I think most people can see this a lot easier, is the image is cut and this is high, this is in relief. So when we roll up this block, the ink's gonna hit the top part like this, and then it's not gonna hit the lower parts. Okay, the other thing that you have to be aware of, you might notice that when you see this, anybody notice the difference between the block and the piece itself? Yeah, it's flipped. Okay, so this is a glorified stamp. Okay, so it's the reverse. So that means if you do, and that's the other reason why I brought this one to print. So this one is, if you do letters and numbers, you have to make sure those are backwards. So that way when you essentially stamp it, it comes out the proper way. Okay. The fun thing about this is I have to do that for the block here. I think that's the only one for this one. What's that?
Grove.
Yes. Where's that
Right
one?
here.
Yes, yeah. So whenever there's like a letter or numbers, a word, I have to make sure that that's flipped. Most of the time, the fun part is, and that's the other reason why I love prints, is like for this one, I'll draw it, and I know there's nothing I have to worry about in terms of it being flipped. I oftentimes will draw it and then print it because it's going to be totally new. Like that's the fun part about it, where it's like it's going to look different. And that part I really like. So unless I got to worry about letters or something, I'll draw it the way I want, and then I don't mind that it's flipped, and then I end up getting used to it being this way. So that's kind of the fun. It's like a little surprise. It kind of halfway through you get this little surprise of the piece that you're working on. So in terms of cutting, so that you can see this, I brought some of these, and later on if you want to just see it, grab it just to look at something, that's fine. These are like really flexible, like more rubber, they're really soft. So like people who have trouble cutting, young kids, this works really well. You can't get crazy detail with this, but it helps with beginners or new people to cut the softer stuff. Wood's way harder. Linoleum's kind of in the middle. I love linoleum for two reasons. One, it's super cheap, and two, you don't have to worry about the grain, so you can kind of cut and swirl around and do different marks, and you don't have to fight the grain that you would for wood. Okay, and this you wouldn't have to do it as well. So as I'm cutting this, what I'll do is I will, and I did this here. I did a B and like a little cross hatching. I'm not worried about it being backwards or forwards, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around this B. I'm going to leave the part that I ink. So everything that I do when I do it is I'll draw on the block, and then I'll ink it with a Sharpie or whatever, and that's the part that I'm going to work around. Okay, so I'll do that with this B. Now the other thing is there's this little cutting tool. They got all these fancy ones that you can buy, but I've always done them with my students in high school. So all these blocks, I've just stick with the super cheap cutting tool. Like this is like $5, and they got like $20 wooden handle ones, but I just get the cheapo. Same with the rollers. Like there's really nice rollers you can get, but like I'm able to do pretty decent work with the cheapest stuff possible. And at first when I started doing it, like I would do work with students, so I didn't want to like use stuff that they weren't using, so I just got in the mode of just using what they were using, and that kind of inspires people a little bit. The one thing I actually did let kids use is I've got addicted to this, and this is from the etching days. So this is like a little jeweler's thing, and the kids love when I wear this because they think it's super goofy looking, but it just magnifies it. And now I used to use it for etching all the time, and I'm completely addicted to it because it just enlarges everything. And the older I get, now I'm even more addicted to it. So I'll just sit here and I will just cut along the line of this B. Now, one of the things that you got to realize is these things are like, this cutter is a V shape. Okay, so it's a V-shaped cutter like this. So what it's doing is it's cutting, if this is the surface, it's cutting this V-shape cut out of it. Okay, so one of the things I have to tell the kids or beginners is you got to keep the cutter straight, because you don't want to undermine the shape that you're cutting around. Because you can imagine if I curve this V, it's going to cut underneath the shape. So what you got to do is you can turn it, but you want to really keep it. You really want to keep it straight as you curve it. Okay, and so I just kind of curve around these shapes. And so the big question I always get asked, especially when kids, the blocks I give them are like this size, or I'm doing a little demo on a little shape like this, they're like, holy cow, how long does it take to cut this? You know, that's the first question everybody asks, is how long does it take you to cut these big blocks? I've never like timed it necessarily. but I will say it takes a while. And I've done a bunch, so I'm a little bit on the quicker side, but like I can be quick on this because it's just this scrubby little bee on a scrap piece. But like if I'm cutting stuff like this, I gotta be careful because what really, it doesn't happen to me often, but like this is fine because if you were slip or you were to do something, it's easy to kind of to make up stuff. But when you start to cut into this, if I hack into that line, you can't get it back. You know, you can't add to it. It's all reductive. So what I tend to do is when I'm cutting is I'll cut it and then I'll proof it, knowing that it's close to being done, but it's undercut. And then later on I'll come in and cut in more. So like especially skies, if I cut this, I'm purposely leaving these pieces, so when I print it, I want to lighten this up, I'll cut a little bit more. I want to lighten up this beak, so I'll cut out more, I'll cut out here. So you're constantly proofing these on crappy paper and then seeing like what you want, like, I'm going to cut out more in the tail, I'm going to cut out more in the highlight, until you get it to what you want, and then these are all printed on fancy paper once they're done. But the key is to just, you know, cut, but A, don't make big mistakes, and B, make sure that you undercut areas when you're trying to work with gradation. And so what I mean by that is like, for instance, like these highlights here, as I'm cutting this, okay, I want this sense of light, so I want this to be lighter. I had the sky be lighter, and then as the water flexed out, I had this be a little bit darker. And I'm constantly playing how I'm cutting out a little bit and then slowly making it darker as it goes out to the edge. And I cut side by side. This is the part that's going to print. This is the part that's going to print. This is where I cut it. If I turn that in there, I make that triangle cut in here, and I do the same thing here. Now all of a sudden this is going to break off. See, so you gotta, and that's one of the things with kids or new people when they're printing. That's one of the things that always trips them up, because they start cutting and they want to like turn this and all, and then they start cutting stuff and things will break off and they're not getting it the way they want. So that's the cutting part before I get to the printing part. Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
Can an X-Acto cut keep you from cutting into the image?
Yeah, okay, so great question. So the question is, if you were to use an X-Acto blade, can you kind of almost outline it to protect the edge? The answer to that, they do that in wood a lot. There's almost like an X-Acto, because the grains will want to, like you'll cut and it'll want to take off more. The beauty about linoleum, so what I'll do, especially with newcomers, is I'll do exactly that, but I still will use this. So I'll outline stuff to protect. So I'll cut along here, and you can even see the line. I'll cut along here before I start doing that. So that way it'll go right up to it without going into it. Because if you don't, it's gonna look like it's chewed out. Like you're not gonna get a hard edge. So there'll be certain areas where I'm purposely making sure I'm outlining it before I start to cut, so that way it doesn't dig into it. There's some areas where I'll do it, and that's the gradation part, where you don't want to do that because you want the transition to be soft. So within here I'm cutting, and then I'm cutting out a lot, and in here I'm cutting out less until I get to like little dashes. And so there you want it to kind of bleed forward, but when you want those edges, the X-Acto blade would work, but like, believe it or not, these will leave like a little, you want like a little bit of gap, because inevitably when you get up to it perpendicularly, it's gonna go right up to it, and you want that little space. But they'll do it more for wood against the grain, so it'll stop right there. But linoleum, I don't really have to. I will use the X-Acto blade to actually cut the whole block. You know, so if I want to shape the whole block out, or cut a hole in it and have one section gone, then I'll come in and cut all the way through it for that. That's a great question. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite place where you buy your supplies?
Blick is usually what I'll go through. You know, I'll get most of them at Blick for this. It's funny because way back, and it closed a long time ago, we used to go to Masco's. I used to take the kids to Masco's. And John now works at the university bookstore, and he helps me cut the frames. I do all the framing, but he cuts them for me. But we used to go to Masco's because I'm like one of those suckers to go to the local place. But now it's like I'm getting it from Blick. Yeah. There was another, yes.
So once you've made your linoleum block,
Yeah.
how long does that last? Like how many prints do you
Oh,
get
that's a great question.
Does ink
So.
get stuck in the
Yeah, I if I'm doing a block, like this one you'll see, it was 20, yeah. So if you look at, there's a few of them here, this one in particular that's an addition. So when I started cutting, and then I got it to where I wanted, as I was cutting it, I had colleagues going, I want that. I'm like, oh geez. So it gave me a sense of like how many to print. So I printed an edition of 25. This is the 19th one of 25. So and that's why I love this medium, is because when I was in college, I would do something and I always wanted one for me.
Yeah.
I was really stingy. Like I just had trouble giving stuff up. So I could always hold on to one. When we were back in the day, even with students, we would do trades. So like if there was 12 kids in the class, we'd each do one, including me, and then everybody would give one to everybody else, and so you'd end up with one of each. So that's what's really fun about these. So some of them I'll keep open-ended, where it's like, I'll do it like David Becker would, where I'll go, I'll put 25, but I only really printed 10 because I don't want to sit on another 15 unless I get to print it, but it leaves it open-ended. This one I actually did print the 25. But most of the time it's just kind of depends on what I'm doing. The book stuff I have not a ton, only because I'm in the mode of like trying to illustrate the chapters, and it's more like producing it. But I've left, so I haven't really done, like that one's what they call an AP proof. So most of the ones I have are like, there's probably only 4 of them out there, because I haven't even attempted to do an edition of it yet, and part of it's teaching. And
How many do you think you could get out of a linoleum block?
So I could print this, I could print 100 if I wanted to. It won't break down, like the way that I'll do a demo print of this, and I'm gonna be doing it by hand. So the cool thing about relief is like, you can do these by hand, so you don't need any real big equipment. We have a nice press at school, 2 nice presses at school, so that's where I would print a lot of these. But then over COVID, I got a press for myself in my basement. So like, it just makes for bigger prints. It just allows you to print a little quicker, more consistency. But for this, and for the class, like when we do it in Bjorkland, and we just do it by hand. And if they're small like this, it's super easy to do by hand, But you can print a lot, off of one block. I don't, only because, what would I do with them? That's a great question, though. Any other? Yes.
Can you talk about adding color?
Yeah. So I have some like on my online gallery. For me, you can do multiple colors. There's what they call reductive printing. So what you can do is you cut out a little bit, roll it up with color, then you print a bunch in that one color, then cut a little bit more, then print that color, and then you gotta line it back up and then print that color over it. So there's a lot of different ways to add colors, multiple blocks. You can jigsaw it, you can cut it out, add different colors to different pieces. When I did my master's degree, I did printmaking and drawing, so I'm like really into the drawing part. So when I add color, most of the time, I'm hand coloring it. So what I'll do is I'll print it, and then I'll come back in and draw and put color in it after. And I love doing that because it's the drawing element. So all the ones in my online gallery, the hand color ones, most of those are one of a kind because you can't repeat it the same way. So most of those will just be, you know, one print, even though like I might color, like say I have one that's like, I call it my recycled bird. So it's like this, it's done in this style, but it's this big eagle. And I've done multiple ones, colored it, but they're all different. I can't replicate it the same way. So there's a multiple way of doing colors. I've always been like I lean towards the black and white. I love the contrast and I love the lines. And so, yeah, I tend to kind of fall into that little trap a lot. Yeah, yeah, good question, good question. All right, so in terms of printing, so basically what you do is there's tons of different ink. This is the type of ink I use for these pieces, and inks have a different viscosity, and so this I'm in love with this. It's water based. Okay, so when we were doing etching and stuff, a lot of it was oil based. I loved it. They got water-based, but I didn't like them. This is the opposite, where I love the water-based stuff. Because the other thing is when I decided to have a studio in my house, I didn't want a lot of chemicals and stuff. So these are all water-based inks. This one is a much stiffer ink, so it works great with presses. Okay. This stuff is water-based as well, but it works really good for hand printed pieces because it releases from the block way better. Okay, and you'll see what I mean by that. So the first thing I do is I take a little bit of ink, and you find a palette. This is just like a little plastic, little piece of plastic plexiglass. I have a table that's got, fancy glass on it and stuff, but just a little regular plexiglass. And what I'll do is I take a brayer and I'll roll this out, okay? Now the key is when you're rolling this out is when you first start doing it, it's gonna be all goopy. So you want it to be nice and flat, okay? So when I do this, I'm gonna go really flat. Okay, so I'm getting this velvety look to it, okay? That's super important because that's gonna dictate you not filling in your low spots. So you can imagine when I do this, now when I roll this over, I just want the ink to hit the high spots, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just take my brayer and I'm gonna roll over my piece, just hitting the high spots, okay? Now, one of the things I'm not doing is I'm not going like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Because if I'm just going back and forth, you gotta think what you're doing. What I'm trying to do is get this distribution of ink in the various spots. So I have to lift it up and change it. Okay, I gotta move it around so that way I'm getting as much of the ink that's on this onto here. Okay, so then what I'll do is I'll take this and I add a little bit more to it. Okay. And then now I have to make sure I re-roll it because you can see it's all goopy at first. And so I'm going to roll that out and get it nice and smooth. And you can almost hear it. Like there's a sound that you're waiting for. It's kind of this real smooth sound. And then what you want is that to be on your print. So I'm going to and I'm moving around trying to, and the funny thing about this block, and I did this purposely, I brought this one, because you can see I never cut this part. So this, if I roll my roller onto this, it's gonna accept ink. But I brought a little brayer so I can target, I'm just rolling up this area, I'm not rolling up this, because if I roll up these, that's gonna catch ink, and I don't want that. Yes?
I just want to say that everybody's welcome to get a little bit closer if you want to see what
Yeah.
Don't worry, you're not copying.
So now, what I'm doing is I'm just getting that. So now what I got, pretty close, I got this really shiny surface that's kind of similar to this, but it's only in the parts you cut, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is I purposely, I brought this for your benefit, is the proofing paper I got. This wouldn't be what I would normally use, but the proofing paper I got is this vellum. Okay, so it's semi-transparent. So I did that so when I burnish this, you can actually see it release from the block onto the paper. Okay, so now normally I would have what they call a template, and so I would have a plate. I would know how I'm going to put my block, and I know where I was going to put my paper, because if you don't want some of this paper, like most of this paper is like a couple bucks a sheet. You don't want to just plop it down and then have it be crooked, and now it looks like crap. So you have a way of organizing it with a template. With this, I'm just going to eyeball it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it down. The key is, though, once you drop it down, is you don't want to shift it, because if you shift it, it's going to smear, okay? And now, well, I always give it a little push, because then it's going to stick and stay where it's supposed to stay, okay? So now it's ready to go. So they got all these different burnishers. This one's like, a little plastic burnisher. You could go in like this. This one's super famous. Someone got really nice. Someone got me. It's glass. Okay, you can just sit, but no. Just like I did, I got a wooden spoon. Okay? I'm telling you, these wooden spoons work the best. Okay? I got a ton of leverage. Okay, so I can take this. It's flat. Okay, and you can see as I start to do this, okay, you can see the dark part start to show up. Now, normally if the paper's opaque like these, you're not seeing that, okay? But this one actually, you can tell where you've actually burnished and where it's actually starting to release and print onto paper, okay? And I'll lift this up too once I get it all burnished. And so now I'm just burnishing this with this paper, okay? Like that, and you can see, I'll lift it up so you can see it. Okay, so you can see the ink through the paper. Now, normally you wouldn't be able to see that, that's why I did it for you guys. And then you just kind of peel it, and then boom, bingo. Voila, voila, voila. Now, there's a story behind this. One of my other hobbies is I brew beer, okay, and my son keeps stealing it all, okay? So one day he's like, "This is so good, Dad." I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man." He goes, "You need to make a label for it." So once he put that in my brain, so I printed this, and then I made little labels that will go on them. Bang, bang, see that? Anybody want, I brought one extra sheet. Anybody want to take a shot? I'll guide you.
I'll do it.
There we go. There we go. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, so you just come over here. All right. And what I'll do is I'll just load it a little bit. We'll do it. Okay. And I'll just roll that as you saw me do it. This part you can't really mess up. Now keep changing directions. Yeah. Now now as you're doing it, you don't want to roll all over the place. You want to stay contained because you're trying to get this ink here. And that's what some of you might remember. I'd be like, I'm giving them, I spoiled my students because there's really cheap ink you can use for kids, but I would end up getting pretty nice ink. But I said, you can't roll it all over the palette because you're just wasting it, because it's never going to make its way here, okay? So, great job, this looks good. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to carefully roll it right over here. So, yep, and lift it up, keep changing direct, yeah. But go like this, see, yep, there you go. There you go, just like that. Sweet, sweet. Then reload it again. Yep, there you go. Yeah. Oh, look at the technique. Good technique, good technique. Nice, there you go. What do you think? You think it's good?
Maybe one.
Do it one more, yeah, do it one more time.
This is for the gallery, by the way.
Yeah. All right, so,
That's good.
all right, so then when you lay this down, yeah, you just flip this, and then what I'll do is I'll plop it on there for you,
Okay.
and then we'll let you burnish it. So this out of the way, this out of the way. Okay. And we'll go this way. Yeah, oh, yeah, so what you do is just flip this, yeah, and then you give it decent, see how it makes it dark as you, yeah, you can kind of see it coming through. Yeah.
Does that work with a round spoon?
It does, who's asked that? Yeah, it works with a round spoon, the thing is, great question, okay, so if you think of the spoon, it totally does, but when it curves down, there's less like contact area, so it'll work. But see, you notice this one, it curves and it's flat, so it's got that whole length to burnish it. So we have used wooden spoons or metal spoons, but this one I found, and it's just awesome, because you get all this. Whereas the spoon, you can only get it like right where it touches in that one spot. But it will work. There you go.
Where did you get it?
Where did I get it? The spoon? Damn. Damn.
I made an art.
You did, yes you did. It was, my wife had one that she used, okay? And then I started looking at it and I'm like, dude, this would be sweet. So then I went on Amazon to try to like find one. All I wanted was the shape and I found it. And yeah, and then it had the little name on it. So I bought like 6 of the, I think we used it for the Bjorklund ones. I think we used these for that. So I bought like 6 of them, and yeah, and they were cheap. They were cheap. Yeah. So there we go. Any questions? Oh yeah.
Do you have to wipe off your block at all?
Okay. So yeah. So what I'll do later is so now in the back, just with water. I'll wash off the brayer, the block, and this. Now, when this will stain, it'll kind of stain. Well, you can see this one. This one's been printed umpteen times. Okay, so you don't see the contrast that you see in this. But this, I just got a little utility sink and I just wash it. It comes right off with water. Like I get a little brush, I'll just wash it right off. Then it'll want to curl. It'll want to bend. So I got these boards, I'll lay it under, keep it flat until it dries, and then it will roll up again, you know. But yeah, so you're washing the block off. The only thing you gotta be careful with the linoleum blocks is they're flexible, but they will snap. Okay, so see if I push it all the way, it'll snap. And then the burlap on the back will hold it. If I cut it with an X-Acto and I want my shape, I'll cut it, and then I gotta cut the burlap to like get it to separate. But yeah, so it comes off with water. Once it dries, it's good to go. Yeah.
Do you prefer to cut your linoleum cold or do you heat it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So for the young kids, because linoleum can be pretty tough, so you can warm it up. Like some of my students, I have a hot plate so they can lay it on the hot plate. And it makes it super, I mean, it cuts like butter then. But because I've cut in wood so much, to me, linoleum is so easy. So I never heat mine. And they got these like, little like braces that you can hook on tables so you can push against it. But I just spin my, like I find it really easy to do, you know. But yeah, but people will warm them up. Yeah.
So if you didn't want to have like a little piece of a smudge like kind of outside of the design, do you like kind of like, you know, let's say when you do the nice paper, do you like try to clean it up?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So if you get these really nice pieces of paper, okay, what you're doing is you're rolling the block up, okay, and then you're like, I'm just working on here in the sink, but I'm not doing that anywhere else. Like when we're in school, we roll up on one table and then we go over and print in the other space. Okay, so if you're working on a press bed, you're making sure the press bed surface is clean. So when you lay the block over, there's nothing that's going to offset onto it but the block itself. When you print a bunch, ink will offset and go on the press bed, but you just got to make sure you have it clean every time. So if you got a class, we're doing it with a class, like you have to make sure before you lay your block on, it's clean, because somebody else's stuff can offset onto the outside of yours, and that sucks. Because if you get a really nice print and you got somebody's smudge from theirs or a different color from theirs, But by themselves, if you're just doing it by yourself, as long as the surface the block is sitting on is clean, and you lay the paper over, you're good to go. Yeah, unless you shift it. But yeah, good question. All right. Any other questions? All right. Awesome. Awesome. I just gonna eventually clean some of this mess up.